Terry operates on a very specific set of assumptions, that thoughts move from one head to another like packages on a conveyor belt. If the words are clear, the meaning is settled. It's an approach built on the idea that communication is something any person in their right mind should already know how to do. Anthropologist Clifford Geertz describes this as the simple nature of the case. Common sense doesn't present itself as a theory or a choice. It presents itself as natural and practical. It feels like the way things are, a catalog of undeniable realities that force themselves upon any mind clear enough to receive them. This model is effective when the goal is simple coordination. If you are following a recipe or reading a syllabus deadline, a direct transfer of information is exactly what you need. In an emergency, thin, literal instructions are a survival tool. No one wants to stop and interpret the metaphorical resonance of a fire exit sign while the building is burning. We want the information to be as clear and efficient as possible. But as the terrain gets more complex, this reliance on the obvious becomes its own kind of fiction. Geertz notes that common sense is an authoritative story we tell ourselves to make the world feel predictable. It claims to reach past illusion to see things as they really are, striking at the heart of reality by ignoring the layers beneath it. This approach relies on a representational view of language, treating words as simple truth claims that can be verified and filed away. We call this knowing. It is the process of collecting accurate information that can be stated, recalled, and identified. The problem is that once we feel we possess the correct information, curiosity often shuts down. When the facts feel settled, we stop asking questions. We stop looking for what else might be true because the puzzle piece has already locked into place. Terry tries to solve a delicate emotional conflict using the same rigid logic. He treats being clear like a blunt instrument, trying to force a resolution by stating his facts more loudly. He assumes that if he can just get the information right, the relationship will fix itself. The interaction eventually reaches a point of collapse. This is the analytical dissolution of the premise that reality is neat. The clean lines of Terry's world shatter when they hit the messy reality of histories, assumptions, and unspoken meanings. When our information is too small for the situation we are in, the rigid rules of common sense transform from tools into obstacles. The more Terry insists on his accurate facts, the further he gets from the person standing in front of him. Moving past this requires a different posture. Rather than verifying truth claims, understanding focuses on the manners by which knowledge is formed and sustained. It means looking into the systems of relations that allow a specific meaning to exist in a specific moment. We call this sense-making. It is the process of navigating a landscape where the ground itself shifts based on context. Every interaction is layered with history, power dynamics, and relational patterns that we have to interpret while we are still moving through them. In this model, expertise doesn't move through a pipe, it is built in the shared space between people. Meaning has to be jointly negotiated and interpreted before any piece of information becomes usable or relevant. Terry puts down his tools of force and starts taking field notes instead. He stops trying to fix the situation and observes the terrain. He moves from someone delivering a message to someone trying to grasp how the pieces of the interaction connect. Common sense, as it turns out, is a cultural system. It is a developed tradition of thought, no more universal than art or religion. It is an interpretation of experience, rather than experience itself. This text describes the quality of thinness, the tendency to represent things as being exactly what they seem to be, but interpersonal reality is rarely thin. It is thick with ambiguity, where a single silence can be interpreted in 5 different, equally reasonable ways. Navigating that thickness requires us to hold multiple truths at once, even when they are in tension. This is dialectical thinking. It's the ability to recognize that you can be responsible for your impact even if your intention was good, 2 truths pulling on the same point without breaking it. Because there is no universal script for these tensions, we rely on judgment. We have to decide what is ethical, caring, or appropriate based on the specific situation, the specific history, and the specific person in front of us. Moving toward understanding changes the way we relate to others. The person who only delivers correct information is rarely as interesting as the person who walks into the room and asks, How are you seeing this? These local logics vary wildly. Geertz notes that when a Zande potter's work cracks, the local common sense might point to witchcraft, while another culture would point to negligence. Both systems feel entirely obvious to the people inside them, proving that what we call sanity is often just the voice of our own culture. This raises a difficult question. What happens when we stop assuming that our map is the only one? What happens when our old certainties about how communication should work finally stop working? That irritation is often the first sign of outgrowing a simple rule. When the old maps fail, we are forced to develop more complex ones. The discomfort of not knowing is often the only way to arrive at a more careful understanding of how meaning is actually made. Terry is standing at a crossroads where the maps no longer match the ground. The weather is unpredictable, and the paths are conflicting. And for the first time, he is comfortable enough to keep walking. Communication is not the task of finding the right recipe to follow. It is the practice of navigating the mess with humility, curiosity, and the willingness to ask what else might be true. Fade to black.